Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session. Please start your mics. Welcome to Marseille, everybody, and to this session, the importance of extending the palm oil moratorium in Indonesia. So we have actually a great lineup from Indonesia, several experts, and we will look at the Indonesian perspective and also have some European perspectives regarding this. So today we are going to discuss the role and the importance of the palm oil moratorium to support other measures to achieve sustainable palm oil and land use. President Joko Widodo issued the moratorium in 2018 in response to the widespread concerns about environmental violations and land conflicts and labor rights abuses with the palm oil industry. The moratorium intended to cancel new permits for palm oil plantations in forest areas, firstly. Secondly, the evaluation of existing palm oil permits in forest areas. Thirdly, the reallocation of concessions in forest areas to local communities. And finally, increase the productivity of palm oil plantations through compliance with ISPO instruments and farmer institutional strengthening. So why is it so important to have this palm oil moratorium extended? And how can you give your support to this? Please listen in for the next hour and support our call to action. Listen to the experts from the field from Sawit Watch. And firstly, I would like to introduce the director of Sawit Watch, Indah Fatinaware, who will give an opening regarding the palm oil moratorium in Indonesia. Indah, welcome to Marseille.
Yep.
And please introduce yourself shortly to the public and welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Good morning and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Indah from Sawit Watch. We're talking about moratorium and background problem in Indonesia about palm oil. Okay. Yeah. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank IUCN for its cooperation in supporting Sawit Watch in the social justice and ecological justice advocacy movement. Now I will convey the situation of oil palm plantation in Indonesia. Indonesia is the number of producer of palm oil in the world, about 56% of global production. The production estimate almost 52 million tons of crude palm oil or CPO in 2020. There are 16.5 million hectare oil palm plantation. However, Indonesia palm oil permit area in 2019 which 22.2 million hectare. This is Sawit Watch data. Many problem about plantation now, about labor, environment, and other social problem in the village. Yeah. That's why Sawitwatch and the NGO coalition for the moratorium are pushing for the palm oil moratorium instruction to be extended.
Would you like the next slide, Indah, or?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Next slide. Next slide.
Next slide, please.
Yeah. Next. Yeah. Now back. Back.
Problems.
Yeah. The expansion of oil palm plantation have many implications. Yeah. Particularly the massive land use change such as deforestation, peatland conversion, land grabbing, forest and land fires, flood and drought. The second, the significant change on the social and cultural structure of indigenous people and local communities. And then the expansion has led to various social conflict, especially related to land conflict between the indigenous people and companies. That's why Sawitwatch and the NGO coalition for the moratorium are pushing for the palm oil moratorium instruction to be extended because many problems now. Furthermore, efforts to encourage the implementation of the moratorium carried out by Sawitwatch will be presented by Astrid. Please, Astrid, to present it about moratorium and activity Sawitwatch done.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Indah Fattah Nawara, Director of Sawitwatch, and who will speak further on the role and the objectives of the palm oil moratorium and why international support for the extension of this moratorium is very important is Astrid Puspitasari from Sawitwatch. Astrid?
Okay. Hello, Sander. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Welcome to Marseille. And yeah, too bad that you couldn't be here, but we have a good public who is curious to hear about your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Sander. So Sawitwatch, as an organization that we are first in 1997, has always demanded to halt to expansions of the and we are demand of the optimizing the existing oil palm plantation. So we are against the expansions of the palm oil plantation in Indonesia, and we already say that enough. Finally, that in 2018, the Indonesian President Joko Widodo issued the Presidential Instructions number 8 on the suspension and evaluations of the palm oil plantation permits and productivity improvement, known as the palm oil moratorium. However, the moratorium itself will be ended this month, 19 September 2021. So this is very crucial for us, and we are needed all of your help to help us to demand and support the expansion, the extended of the moratoriums. Because why? The moratorium is the first step to improve the palm oil governance in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Okay, so there is 5 general idea about the goals of palm oil moratorium in the policy. First is about to improve the management of the sustainable palm oil plantations, provide legal certainty, maintain and protect environmental sustainability, that is including to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, because Indonesia has declared to reduce its GHG emissions, and to improve the palm oil farmers, especially the small farmers, and to increase the productivity of the oil palm plantations. Next slide, please. So the palm oil moratorium started in 2018. So after almost 25 to 2.5 years, what is the moratorium of the palm oil plantation is actually still far from perfect, but there is something that needs to be kept up. This idea is a great idea to starting to improve, the first step to improve the palm oil plantations. And there already has several initiatives in the regions. So the several regions, head of the regions already review, and several of the region actually has revoked several of the palm oil plantation companies' permits because they are not fit with because they are quite not fit with the permits, and the plantation operational is not really matched with the palm oil plantation sustainability. So the initiative of the several regions already there. However, the implementation in the national level is still far from perfect, especially because the national team is still on the form of preparation and consolidations. For almost 2.5 years, they only finished to consolidate the data of the palm oil plantation, and that's it, but not really resolve exactly what we are expected from them. And even though there are already several regions that have a good initiative and already reviewed by themselves, but the majority of districts have not responded to the presidential instructions. So there's no implementation in all of the district. And there is also no support budget from the national government. So it's very difficult for the regions to implement these presidential instructions. Next slide, please. So after 2.5 years, and this month is the end of the moratoriums, we are give some recommendation with our coalitions to improve the moratorium. First, we wanting the presidential moratorium to be extended. It's not perfect, but this is the first step to stop the expansion. So this is the very first step that we need to do. And then we want to increase the form of regulations that it's stronger and has legal force that binds all the parties. Strengthening the presidential instructions on the palm oil moratorium accompanied by specific targets. As mentioned before, the goal of the palm oil moratorium is still general. There is no specific targets and timeline. Therefore, we are demand to the palm oil moratorium to become accompanied by specific targets. And we want to make sure that the national task force are demand to give the information every 6 months of the result of the implementation of the palm oil moratorium, and we want them to be open in public. And also we want the national government to give their support to the local government to implement that. And we want to them to support the regional to do review and law enforcement. And the moratorium is very first step that we want to extend. This is not perfect, but this is the first step because I'm still in the Kalimantan, and recently, yesterday we have a discussion regarding the moratorium in the central Kalimantan. And in the Pulang Pisau district, there are 6 palm oil companies permits that being revoked. And we just received the info yesterday for the implementation of the moratorium. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is the benefit and the opportunities if this policy being extended? As why this is so important for all of us, not in only Indonesia, but in the global, because Indonesia has the potential to absorb future international demands market for sustainable CPO. So if the sectors want to transform and conform to the objective of the moratorium to make the sustainable palm oil productions.
Astrid,
the second one,
what is CPO for the public?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to explain it. Crude palm oil.
Thank you.
Okay. And the second one, as I mentioned earlier, that there is, based on the Sawit Watch cases, there are almost more than 1,000, based on the Sawit Watch data in 2020, 1,000 conflicts between palm oil companies and the communities. So this moratorium is as one of the tools to resolve agrarian conflict and overlapping permits. And also the moratorium is contribute and provide for Indonesian climate commitments, because Indonesian commitment has to reduce emission by 29% with its own effort and 41% with international assistance. And in 2015, as we know, there is a huge forest and land fires in Indonesia, and mostly happens in the peatland where is the palm oil plantations located. And it's really has a lot of, it's really make our emissions one of the highest level during Indonesian history. The next slide, please. Okay. So as I mentioned before, the HES emission caused by land, the IPCC report already mentions that the human activity caused the climate crisis, and as a global, we want to make sure that the expansion is stopped in Indonesia, so there is no forest being sacrificed into the palm oil plantation. And the second one, market has a strong power. They have to encourage the sustainable and the demand of the sustainability. And so the producent and the company can provide the supply chains in the palm oil industry more sustainable. And the third word, at least it's a minimum sustainability requirement for the sustainability, for sustainability at least. Next, please. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, that the moratorium will be ended this September, the 19th September. So we really need all of the support from all the parties to encourage and strongly support our call for extension of moratorium. So we already write the draft letter to the president in our website, and we are encourage all of you to give it a look and then support and sign on in this letter to support Indonesian moratorium extensions. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay.
Thank you,
Astrid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sander.
Yes, very clear presentation, very clear that on the one hand, the moratorium has brought a lot and is important to extend. And on the other hand, we see still gaps in the implementation. I would like, for those who just joined the session, very welcome. This is a possibility to also ask questions. I have a couple of questions myself, as I'm not an expert on this subject, but I would first like to invite the public. If you have a question, you can go to the microphone. Or if you want to think about it still a little bit. Astrid, I first have a question regarding, I mean, just a very, the oil palm moratorium stops in September, right?
Yes.
That's basically now. What processes are there to, yeah, what is needed? What's the political step to make it reach in a couple of months that it's extended? Can you elaborate shortly on that?
Sawit Watch already lobby and have a discussions with the presidential secretariat to encourage them to extend the moratorium. However, there is some of the parties that have their own lobbies that want this moratorium to be ended. So this is a kind of a battle behind the scenes. But so we not only lobbying and have discussions with the a presidential secretariat, but also have a seminar international and also national level with the communities, district, and also academician to show in the several regions that we are also supported by Sawit Watch, for examples, and the Bulungan, and now we are currently in the Pulang Pisau, Buol, Gorontalo. In several of the districts, they already implement the moratorium, do the review, and then revoke the permits in the forest area. So this is small step that show how the moratorium should be extended because it also gives the benefits.
Okay, yeah, because you in your presentation you also elaborated that the implementation is not everywhere well. So why do you really think it's important to extend? I mean, you indicated international aspects, of course, land rights. So do you think an extension will improve this implementation?
Yes, as I mentioned before, that the moratorium is not a perfect scenario, but at least this is the first step, better than nothing at all. For example, this is halt deforestation because this is stop the new permits. So for us, this is as one step to stop the expansion, better than nothing. So even though it's not perfect, we are trying to help the region, district, and the government to implement it better.
Thank you, thank you. And if you also talked about the permits and that those will be revised. What does the revision of existing permits include in practice?
So the data from the Ministry of Agriculture Indonesia, there is more than 16.8 million of the land, the palm oil plantation existed. Based on our data, there is already permit 22.2 million hectares. That's, I think it's a size of Netherlands, yeah. And from those numbers, 3.8 or 3.7, I forget exactly, is located in the forest area.
So there are already permits in forest area and you want those to be revised?
Yep, we want them to be reviewed and revoked.
Yeah, because the palm oil moratorium wouldn't allow those permits actually, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So
exactly.
the moratorium is stop the new permit and also the opening of the permit. So this is the one small step that we to improve the sustainability.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the public regarding the palm oil moratorium, maybe in relation to palm oil consumption or palm oil in your own country? Very welcome. No, for now, no questions. Then I would like to go to the next speaker, which is, oh, you have a question. Yes, please come forward to the mic. Thank you. I didn't see you wave.
Way in the back.
Please state your name and your organization. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Christina. Work with WWF International for the longest time with WWF Indonesia. So I know Sawit Watch. Nice to see you and meet virtually with you. A quick question in terms of your ask and demand for an extension. Who are your allies? I mean, what kind of advocacy mapping of stakeholders and right holders have you done? Who is behind you? A local government level, national government level, some other ministries, or among the communities as well? Thank you.
Hello, Christina. Thank you for the questions. Yes, in the national level, with the organizations in the Indonesian organizations, we already create more coalitions on the moratorium. So since very beginning, since the 2018, this coalition is what it's called supervise the implementations of this moratorium. So because the national task force of the moratorium needs to to issue the report to the presidential, even though it's not open to the public. But since 2018, we are supervise the step and the implementation of the moratorium. So every 6 months, we issuing the policy brief and also the review of the implementation of moratorium in the national and the district level, in provincial and the district level. So we already built the coalitions in the Indonesian level for the NGOs. And we also lobbying the Presidential Secretariat, Indonesia Presidential Secretariat. We have a discussion with them regularly to also give them update of what happens of the implementation of the moratorium that we also support as the NGO coalitions. But however, up until now, it's still in the discussion is still in the national level. But we do now understand that the global has their own power. They have their own contribution because the moratorium of Indonesia, it's also affected in the global citizens. First of all, because of the climate crisis, and the second of all, because of the global is a market for the sustainable palm oil, so they have power to strengthen it. So we are now starting to collect to what it's called to collect it and promote of the extending of the moratorium with the support from international level.
Thank you, Astrid. That's a good bridge indeed to our next speaker. Thank you for now, Astrid. We'll get back at the end regarding the call for action. We have a website and where you can also connect to this call to action. Michelle, is there a role for European companies and buyers regarding this palm oil moratorium? Michelle, you will give a bit more context about palm oil consumption in countries like China, India, and the EU. Could you shortly introduce yourself to the public here and on YouTube? I would also like to tell to our YouTube viewers, you can also ask a question in the chat and we will also bring it to the session. So Michelle, welcome to Marseille and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sander. My name is Michel Riemersma and I work for IUCN NL on assisting organizations like Southwatch to support them in making global supply chains on palm oil more sustainable. So we try to advocate amongst companies in Europe, amongst investors and governments in Europe to make sure that the commodity supply chains are more sustainable. And Astrid already mentioned that the policy developments in Indonesia do not happen in isolation. They are of importance for global actors, and vice versa, the actions of global actors are of importance for Indonesia. So whatever the Indonesian government decides to do with the moratorium, whether they extend it or not, this will have an influence on global markets for palm oil. So can I see the next slide, please? I will give a bit more context about Indonesia in the global palm oil market. So I think this will make it more easier to understand why Indonesia cannot act in isolation of other countries. And if you see on this slide, Indonesia is the largest producer of palm oil globally. Inda already mentioned it. For the next season, so to say, Indonesia will produce around 58% of the global production of palm oil. So they're the main producer. And the largest domestic consumers of palm oil are next to Indonesia itself are India, China, and the European Union. Indonesia itself has a share of about 20% of global consumption. And then India, China, and European Union have a percentage of around 10% each, which show that these four countries or groups of countries in the case of European Union consume almost half of the palm oil that's produced in the world. the difference between the 58% of global production that Indonesia is producing and that it only consumes 20% of the global production shows that export markets are very important to Indonesia. So whatever they decide to do with their own palm oil production, they have to rely on access to global markets. So if you can show the next slide, please. One of the conditions that's becoming more and more important to gain access to global markets for palm oil producing countries is the sustainability of the production of palm oil. So what we see, especially in the European Union, is that there are more and more sustainable import regulations upcoming. Although the legislation has been postponed a few times, it's likely that at the end of the year, the European Union will implement at least 3 types of legislations. First of all, there's the legislation on the import of deforestation or conversion related products, which means that if palm oil is produced on land that was recently deforested, it can not be imported in the European Union. And second of all, there's a legislation upcoming that will be about human rights due diligence. So as the moratorium is also looking into land conflicts between farmers and local communities, companies that will want to import palm oil to the European Union, they will have to ensure that they are importing palm oil that's not related to human rights violations such as land conflicts. And then third of all, Europe is developing new policies for green investments. So if Indonesian palm oil companies or palm oil buyers from Europe want to receive investments from financial institutions that can be considered green, they have to comply with very strict criteria that are under development at the moment. And if it's very likely that if palm oil companies are involved in any form of deforestation, that they will not be eligible for green investment. So that can be a very strong incentive for palm oil companies to not be involved in deforestation, even when they have been granted permits if the palm oil moratorium is not extended. In India and China, we're not aware of any sustainable import regulations at the moment. But besides legislation, there's also an important drive from palm oil buyers and investors that are more and more demanding from palm oil producers that they have policies on no deforestation, no peat, and no exploitation. So in short, NDPE commitments. So in Europe, we see that a large share of what is imported is already falling under these NDPE policies. And in India and China, which are 2 other main markets for palm oil, there's less demand for this, although it seems to be increasing, but it's hard to say whether there really is an increasing demand for NDPE policies sourced palm oil. So can I see the next slide, please? It's really important that the Indonesian government takes action on this, as Astrid already described, the importance of why the moratorium should be extended. And palm oil buyers that have committed to not be involved in deforestation, they can on their own not prevent any leakage to other markets. Leakage means that palm oil that's produced in a non-sustainable situation can still go to markets that are not demanding NDPE policies. And the moratorium is a first step towards good governance in Indonesia. And this is essential in halting deforestation and peat conversion, because the government, in theory, is the first entity to enforce a no deforestation and no peat conversion policy. Companies that buy palm oil can on their own not enforce any no deforestation policy. They can try to monitor, of course, with satellites and other methods to not be involved in deforestation, but it's becomes increasingly difficult to do this if the government is not trying to enforce the deforestation, and especially when permits are granted to palm oil plantations that operate in forested areas.
Michelle, you mean
yes.
the Indonesian government in this case?
Yes, indeed. The Indonesian national government, and as Astrid described, also the regional governments in Indonesia. Like they are the first entity that has to enforce the no deforestation regulations and ensure that there's no deforestation in Indonesia. So if the moratorium is not extended or revised and improved, this might be even better than simply extending the current moratorium. Palm oil buyers and investors from Europe and from increasingly from other countries as well will face a situation in which it will be way more difficult for them to ensure that they are not involved in deforestation when they source palm oil from Indonesia. So for Indonesian companies as well to maintain market access to countries where sustainability is very important, to them it's also very important that the moratorium is extended, because in that way they can easier show that they are complying with sustainability requirements that the palm oil buyers demand. Can you show the next slide, please? Because
you want
to? No, that's fine. I would like to give the word to you again. And
thank you, Michelle. Yeah, so it is an interesting point in the sense that on the one hand, you're saying this is important for market access. And on the other hand, how are the palm oil producers in Indonesia reflecting to this? I'm very curious. You're saying, okay, this is important for them to get access. They have a domestic consumption of 20%. The other 38 by top of my head % is for other markets. So how do they stand in that? Maybe both you and Astrid can reflect on that. Maybe you first, with regard to the traders and the companies in the EU that are buying that palm oil, and then maybe go to Astrid regarding the palm oil producers in Indonesia.
Yes, that's a very difficult question.
Yes.
The traders and the palm oil buyers in Europe, they do more and more try to produce sustainably, but at the same time, Astrid already mentioned that in Indonesia, there are also palm oil producers that are lobbying against the extension of the moratorium. So I think there is not an approach that there's not a united approach by palm oil producers. I think there are producers, especially the large publicly listed, that are more likely to listen to their palm oil buyers abroad and their investors. And there are other palm oil producers that are a little bit less likely to listen to international parties. And I think Astrid can say a bit more about it.
Okay, thank you. So there's a division between those. There are those. Astrid, how do you see that?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, since the very beginning, that the producers, company itself.
Could you please speak a bit more in the mic?
Sorry. So as I mentioned before, since even when the moratorium is still in the discussions, not issue yet, and the producer is against the moratorium itself. But we think as this way that the producer of the palm oil plantations, the company itself, this industry is profitable. If it's not profitable, they will not improve it into this kind of big big industry. And the palm oil plantation, the palm oil CPO, it's in our daily life, our shampoo, our food and beverage and everything. So the market use it and have the power to decide which sustainability they want to, which products they want to choose. And the producer itself at the very end will also give what the market wants, and that's it, the sustainability itself. So I think that up until now, the behind the scenes of the lobbying of these extensions of moratorium is still happening, even though they are not really openly say against it, but we know that they're already lobbying, and we heard that. But yeah, but it's like difficult questions to answer, Sander. Yeah. But yeah.
So at least we need to get a part of the private sector that is in favor of the moratorium to speak out on that. I understand. So that would be an important step. I have a question from our YouTube viewers, and the first one is also a difficult question, but we're here for those, of course, as experts. So one question is, what is exactly a sustainable palm oil? Isn't it impossible to make these huge areas of palm oil plantations that are replaced precious forest sustainable? So this is maybe a short answer, Astrid, about the sustainability of palm oil.
Okay, so this is we are kind of against of the what kind of the industry itself. So what we mentioned with sustainable not only mentions about in the term of the environmental, but also the social aspect. So for example, the labor issues, the rights of the labor issue, the conflict resolutions. There is no land grabbing and in the process, so there is no conversion from the primary forest for instance, and also there is no monocultures industry for the palm oil. So those kind of the step, it's maybe not the the ideal itself, but at least improve the industry to a better step.
Yeah, so it's very at least important that that forests that are still there, that those are not converted. Thank you. Is there any question from the public? Yes, please come to the mic and state your name and organization.
I'm Olivier Bera. I'm the founder of Man and Nature, and we worked on developing products, cosmetic products without any palm oil derivative. But I have a question. We hear many times that the palm oil is a great plant, you know, really the most productive in terms of oil. If we don't have palm oil plantation on primary forest, do you have figures saying how much land would be available, non-forested land to do plantation of palm oil?
Excuse me, sir, what do you mean by the last point of your question? Could you repeat that one more time?
Is there available land outside of forest where we could do plantation, even if it's a bit more costly than on primary forest?
Yes, that's clear. Thank you. Astrid, could you answer that?
Okay, so Sawit Watch itself against the expansions, because we understand now that the amount of the land of the palm oil plantation in Indonesia itself is already exceeding the demand of the palm oil plantation itself in the global, because so we are mentioning no expansion since our organization's beginning, because the productivity of Indonesian palm oil plantation is actually still low compared to the others, for example, Malaysia and everything. So we are sure that the palm oil plantation should not be expanded, but increase its productivity, because we are still far low than the ideal productivity. And the second one is there is also an alternative also of the palm oils. For example, Indonesia itself, before we are using the palm oil or the palm oil to dry to what it's called cooking or something like that, we use the coconut oil, and in several of the area we still use that. So yes, we are wanted first, no expansion at all, not in the forested area or non-forested area, because we are sure that the productivity of the palm oil, if it's increasing to the maximum level, it's already meet the demand of the global demand of the consumer.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Can you, yeah, that is, yeah, so it's about productivity, and then not about extending to other, does that answer your question? Sort of, yeah, you were wondering if there are areas outside the forest that are possible as well. So in case there would be expansion outside of the forest, is that possible? Or Astrid Sauwetwatch is just totally against any expansion? So you're basically, is that the, yeah?
Actually, Sauwetwatch is against the expansions
Okay.
at all in every, because as you mentioned before, there are already enough conflicts happening, because the land that seems to be empty, there is indigenous people also there that live in that too.
I see.
So
yeah,
so I think that it's not only about how to expand the palm oil plantation, because in the moratorium itself, one of the goals is to increase the productivity of the palm oil and to support the small farmers of the palm oil. And the important is also to do the monitoring and evaluation. So, for example, one of the choices that available in the market, for example, the certification mechanism, for example, the RSPO, it's not perfect, but at least one of the steps that we use to do the advocations if there is any problems in the fields.
Okay, so thank you, Astrid. Yeah, maybe now, so we have had this session. It's about the palm oil moratorium, and it's almost ending. So why is a letter to the Indonesian government, and what is the main message of your letter? I mean, you have explained it in the thing. There is also a link to the website of the letter. Could you elaborate slightly on that letter to the president?
Yeah. So this letter to our Indonesian government, the presidential, is actually to support the extensions of moratorium and improve the implementation of moratorium in Indonesia for sustainable, for the palm oil plantations governance. So this is the link to our website. So we are encouraged, all of you that watch this, to support, to sign on the letter and become part of this. There is a link for the Google form itself also. So if you want your organization included in this letters of support, please go to the website and click the link, so we can also include your organization in our letter to Indonesian government to show the global support to extend the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid. And there you can go to a Google form or something to actually subscribe to this letter, right? Maybe we can still show what this looks like. There is the right, Astrid. Maybe you can guide us through the Google form regarding this.
So the Google form, it's there is. Can you click the next? Next, yeah. So it's there is contact person name, email, your organizations that want to be included in our letter with the phone number. So the contact person name, email, and the phone number is not open in the letter, so we will keep it secret.
Okay.
But we only mentions your organization name in the letter.
Okay, yeah.
And you can see the draft letter of support in our website too.
Okay, so the draft letter of support is in your website. The link will be clearly visible in the YouTube, but also after the session here for the public, we can give you the direct link to support this call of action. Maybe a final question I would like to ask also to Helene. She is another expert from IUCN Netherlands. And I would like to ask Helene, the EU legislation, is that an important element, or how do you see this relation between the EU legislation and the palm oil moratorium, Helene?
Hi, thank you for asking. EU legislation
Sorry, can you shortly introduce yourself? I should have had.
My name is Helene van der Homberg. I work for IUCN, the National Committee of the Netherlands, as an agro-commodity governance advisor. And of course, that is a complex matter, and I work closely together with Michel on this. So first, before answering exactly your question, because time is running out, I'd like to really support the call of Sawit Watch, because if we talk about sustainable palm oil, it is a matter of management according to sustainability criteria, social, environmental, including biodiversity management, but it's also a matter of the right location, not on peatland, not in forested areas, let alone primary forest, but also of scale, as clearly indicated. Scale also has to do with sustainability. So that's really, most of it is a matter of Indonesian governance. But of course, if we talk about scale and if we talk about requirements to management and, you know, not on particular locations that are not allowed, the EU and other importers also have an important role to say. We don't want to import deforestation or conversion into our country. We don't want to import things that are related to human rights infringements. So the forest risk commodity legislation that's coming up, the due diligence legislation that's coming up, and the sustainable finance regulation are all important, let's say, to assure that companies are obliged to buy only sustainable products. Thank you.
Thank you, Helene. And so you really believe that the EU Commission and EU governments, national governments, should also speak in favor of this palm oil moratorium?
Well, that's an interesting question. They should legislate and have their own house in order and support, also with supportive programs. You can ask a particular level of sustainability, but they should also support producing countries such as Indonesia to be able to have their good governance in order. By supporting landscape programs, local organizations, and local farmers, etc., to be able to live up to the standards both in Indonesia and internationally.
Okay, thank you. So put the legislation at EU level in order and support Indonesia with good landscape programs. Thank you. Astrid and Inda, I would like to ask you for your final message to the public here in Marseille regarding the palm oil moratorium. Maybe first Astrid, and as a final point, Inda.
Yes, thank you, Sander. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and we are encouraged all of you to become the part of our supporting letters to extend the moratorium of Indonesia. Thank you, Sander.
Thank you, Astrid. And Inda, I would like to give you the director of Sawit Watch the final word regarding the palm oil moratorium.
Thank you for all. I hope you can support to extend the moratorium. Moratorium extended. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So as the presentation has shown, it's important for various levels. It's important for the local level, but it's also important for the trade level regarding the EU to extend the palm oil moratorium. We will share the links one more time on the screen. And with that, I want to thank everybody to attend this session. I wish you a good day. My name is Sander van Andel from IUCN Netherlands, and enjoy your day in Marseille. Speakers, I want to thank you all. Astrid from Sawit Watch, Inda Fatanaware from Sawit Watch, Helene van der Homberg, IUCN Netherlands, and Michel Riemersma from IUCN Netherlands. Thank you all and have a nice day. Bye.
Bye, thank you.